Hey guys, what's happening? We're going to talk about a question from Demon Hunter 02. He's asking about golfer's elbow. Apparently it hurts too much for him to do pull-ups, but he's okay during regular life. He also has what he believes to be anterior pelvic tilt, which is what a lot of people have, so I believe that. And head forward posture, those two tend to go together because that's part of the sway back that comes from excessive anterior tilt. And then you also have this question here: should I fix my pelvic tilt and rounded shoulders before continuing Foundations 1, which is the Introductory Gymnastic Bodies program? I'm just going to go ahead and say this for everybody. Yes, you should fix your posture. I don't care who you are. If your posture is your form. Form is the shape that you have. The shape that you have is what will tell you a lot about what muscles you're using to perform a movement. Okay, if you're using muscles in different proportions, holding the bones in different orientations, it's not the same movement. So just because you're pushing your body up and down, if your back is all arched and you're like, you know, licking the ground and stuff, it's not the same movement as if you're keeping a straight spine. And a planche with a highly arched back is not the same thing as a planche with a straight body, so on and so forth, okay? So that's very, I mean, you know, they're both planches, but they're different planches. Does that make sense? You're actually using a different recruitment pattern, so it's not the same movement. In your mind, something very different is happening, okay? Like at the nervous system level, the signal's going to the muscle, it's different, and that's why your shape is different. That's a key understanding to take into every exercise that you do, all right? You always want to have a specific orientation for each exercise that you're doing, and they're each going to be unique. The one thing that's just about universal, you want to have a neutral spine. That's not flat. It's a gentle lumbar curve, gentle thoracic curve, gentle cervical curve. And what that means is that it's a very gentle S shape, right? And you can look online and at pictures and stuff and see exactly what that means. Anterior tilt is when you tilt forward and you have too much lower back arch. That then would, if you didn't do anything else, you'd be leaning so far forward that you'd be off balance and your weight would be on your toes. So then you have, which is why when the pelvis is tilted forward, that's what causes the excessive lumbar arch, right? So now you've leaned back, but now you're like looking up. Well, that's no good. It takes a lot more energy to just pull your chin down than it does to round the upper back. So now you have an excessive upper back curvature to go along with the anterior tilt and the resulting lumbar curvature. So now you're looking down, so then you just tilt at the atlas, and which is the first bone of your neck, by the way, at the top. And now here you are with the perfect head forward, kyphotic, which means overly curved upper back, hyperlordotic, which means overly curved lower back posture, which is a common result of excessive anterior tilt. Yes, you should fix that. That changes everything. It changes forces going through the shoulder. It changes what's happening in the shoulder at rest. It's changing the way that your scapula are tilting. It's changing the relative position of the acromion, which is the hook of the shoulder. If you want to think about it like that, on the shoulder blade, you touch the bone right here. That's not your upper arm, it's your shoulder blade, right? So space will be closer between those two bones. It's easier to impinge, yada, yada, yada. Yes, you should change that. I know we spent like 2 minutes on that. It's because it's that important. Change it now. The best way that I can tell you to start changing this is something called static back pose, but really I want to encourage you to spend about $14, I know it's a ton of money, and buy the book Pain Free by Pete Egoscue. P-E-T-E, it's the first name, E-G-O-S-C-U-E is the last name. And what it does is it takes you from the ground up, literally, and explains to you how one injury leads to another and leads to another. And so the first chapter is about your feet. Then you go to ankles, knees, hips, lower back, upper back, shoulders, elbows, wrists, neck, so on and so forth. So you take a bottoms-up approach, because if something happens to your ankle and you sprain your ankle and then you turned out a little bit, that changes your knee and your hip. Well, guess what? Your spine sits on your pelvis, which is influenced by the hip joint, right? So if you make a change in your posture to where your feet aren't facing the same way, you're collapsing in on one arch. I mean, that's just a part of toeing out, is you will pronate, you will collapse in. That changes the hip height of one side versus the other, which introduces excessive curvature laterally, right, scoliosis, into the spine. Now you've got a curved shoulder, you've got uneven shoulders, and then if you and so now you think that you're doing one thing, but really if you straighten out, you'd realize your arm's way down here on one side and way up here on the other. This side's going to hurt, right? Because you're impinging, even though you never knew that. This book is a great, it's not like in medical terminology, it's very easy to understand, and it will take you through, and you will, and after you read that book, which is, it's a short read, it's not very big, you will, it's like half an inch thick, maybe, and you will understand a hell of a lot about why your personal situation is what it is. It doesn't mean you'll be a master, but it's a great first step, and it's a good perspective to think about the human body from. Because then it's going to help you understand why, for example, in foundations, Coach Sommer is so insistent. And when I do my stuff for weightlifting and for body weight stuff and everything else, I will also be so insistent that you take your time and learn the right form in the beginning, because if you don't, it's going to influence everything else in your body, and you're not going to be able to do what you need to do later on, even though you think you've spent the right amount of time. You did spend the time, but you weren't moving correctly, you didn't build the right patterns, didn't build the right strength. Now we've got to start over, and it's a really shitty feeling. So for the golfer's elbow, right, you may find that that actually, in a way, was it was a symptom of everything else, right? And that's why it's so important to start with that book, with the pain-free book, and start with the feet, evaluate yourself. The book will teach you how to evaluate yourself. It's not a diagnosis, it's an understanding of what you're seeing, okay? And then it will take you through. The book has an overall general program that will take about 20 minutes. I highly recommend that you do that. Everything is very easy. They call them exercises, but they take virtually no energy to do. So even somebody in a wheelchair, as long as they have control of their legs, could do these things, because a lot of it is just laying on your back. I want you to start there. After that, then you can start messing with self-myofascial release and things like that. We'll do a video that's separate about specific things you can do if your elbows are hurting to try and work on that, okay? But for now, I want to end this. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like the videos. I know this one went a little long, so I appreciate you guys sticking around. Demon Hunter, I hope that answered some of your question. I really think you're going to get your best results by starting off actually understanding your body, and I think that Pete Egoscue's book's going to really help a lot with that. Once again, ask questions at the bottom of this video. Anything you want to know, let it loose. Peace.